Department of Health found that the department is lacking in its oversight for providers of at-home care for people with disabilities.
The state auditor's office says LDH is not meeting its internal goals to make sure that the providers are keeping up with the regulations. Our Liam Combs spoke to the auditors today to get a better understanding on what this means and what's being done to fix this gap in oversight. Hey, Liam.
Hey guys, right now there is not a federal law that says this department has to survey its providers. It's been more of a goal to make sure people receiving medical treatment at home are being, well, treated right. The problem is when those surveys aren't being done, it's hard to know what kind of quality of care you'll be getting. LDH's goal is to survey providers of at-home care for people with disabilities once every 3 years. And what this audit found is that of the nearly 550 providers that needed a survey, 410 were completed. On top of that, 69 of these providers had not received a survey at all. A lot of the problem stems from the pandemic.
And so for them, that was a challenge because they were having to pull some of their surveyors off of the home and community-based services surveys and moving them to other ones that were accompanied with federal funding.
Another lapse in oversight comes from the middlemen between the patient and the provider, what's called the support coordination provider.
When the support coordinators are not being monitored, there's a question as to whether or not they're going out and actually seeing the participants on the schedule that they should be seeing them. They're an additional set of eyes that do look at the interactions between the participants and the providers.
One thing that is working well for LDH is responding to complaints. In the past 2 years, 99% of complaints were looked into and addressed. However, State Senator Regina Barrow says the lack in oversight could mean some issues go unsolved for the people who need the care.
Oftentimes, these are individuals who may not be able to, on their own, communicate what problems they are experiencing or what gaps or what services they're not receiving. And so if they cannot communicate that, and no one is actually overseeing to make sure that those services are being delivered, then therein lies the problem.
Now, as far as these gaps in oversight, the auditor's office gave some recommendations, starting with meeting the 3-year survey goals and going as far as to say complaints should be available to anyone who wants to see them, so you can make the best decisions.
I would want to be able to have some reasonable assurance that this is a provider that hasn't had numerous sanctions from the state because of non-compliance.
LDH did not accept our request for an interview, but gave an emailed statement saying it is looking into the problems addressed in the audit and will begin to implement some of the recommendations from the auditor's office. Now, as for making that information public, don't expect that anytime soon. LDH says it has concerns because of patient privacy rights. But on the other hand, the auditor's office says to keep out personal information and just give people access to the information, right? But for now, LDH says it is doing what it can. Guys?
All right, Liam, thank you. Dozens of local workers will be